I worked 3 jobs to put Clara through university. For years, my life was a blur of early mornings, late nights, and the constant hum of exhaustion, all fueled by the dream of her success. After she graduated, that dream seemed to come true in a way I never imagined. Her wealthy family, who had long thought she was lost, found her. Suddenly, she was no longer the girl I shared a cramped apartment with, but a bona fide heiress. Everyone around me started clapping me on the back, telling me my tough days were finally over, and that I was about to become the luckiest man alive, a wealthy son-in-law. But beneath all the glittering congratulations, a cold unease settled in my gut. One evening, as we stood in the new, spacious apartment her family had provided, the silence between us felt heavier than ever. I looked at her, so beautiful and poised in clothes I could never have afforded her, and the words tumbled out before I could stop them. "Should we break up?" She froze, her smile faltering for just a heartbeat. Then it returned, strained and awkward. "What are you talking about?" she asked, trying to sound playful. But I saw the flicker of panic in her eyes, the hesitation that confirmed my worst fears. I managed a calm smile of my own, a hollow thing. "It's okay," I said softly. "You don't have to be in a tough spot. I'll leave." That night I packed a small bag, leaving behind the apartment and the 3 years of memories we had built together. My question hadn't come out of nowhere. Just moments before I'd asked, I overheard her on the phone with a friend from high school. "Your life is like a comeback story now," the friend had chirped. "Even Julian would have to pay attention to you. You chased him all through high school and he wouldn't give you the time of day. This must feel amazing." There was a pause. "I heard your family wants to set you up with him. But what about your boyfriend, the delivery guy?" Clara's voice was low, almost casual. "I've been wanting to break up for a while," she'd said. "We just don't click anymore. It'll happen on its own." Her family wouldn't let her marry a delivery guy. Was that it? Was I just a placeholder, a comfortable habit she was waiting to break? In her eyes, I wasn't the man who loved her, but just a delivery guy. A stepping stone she was now ready to leave behind. It stung, especially because just a few days ago, she had held me tight and talked about our future, a life we would build together. I thought I knew her. I had worked until my body ached, skipping meals and pushing through exhaustion just to cover her tuition and living expenses. My friends all told me it wasn't worth it, that I was setting myself up for heartbreak. I would always defend her, confidently telling them that Clara wasn't like that. Reality, it turned out, had a vicious slap. All my effort, all my sacrifice was just a one-sided delusion. To her, it had become a burden. If she didn't love me, she could have just said so. Why did she have to look at me with those adoring eyes, telling me she couldn't live without me? It made me believe a lie, that she felt the same way I did. I had almost forgotten that she never really loved me to begin with. Back in high school, everyone knew she was obsessed with Julian. I was there, a quiet witness to her all-consuming crush. Clara came from a poor background then, wearing the same faded school uniform day after day. Yet somehow she'd find the money to buy Julian limited edition music boxes and tickets to sold-out concerts. To Julian, a boy who had everything, these gifts were meaningless. He'd accept the music box without a thank you and find someone else had already given him better concert tickets. He treated her like a personal assistant, someone to boss around, and she let him crush her dignity time and time again, always trailing after him like a lost puppy. I can't pinpoint the exact moment I fell for her. Maybe it was watching the light in her own eyes dim with each rejection. She was this shattered girl, so earnestly trying to protect her fragile heart while forcing herself to gather the broken pieces. Watching her hurt made me want to hold her, to heal her wounds. One day I couldn't stand it anymore, and I urged Julian to just look back at her, to see the shadow that followed him so faithfully. He just sneered and called me a fool. Things took a dark turn when Julian was framed for something at school. Clara, in a misguided act of loyalty, fought back for him, injuring several other students badly. She was sentenced by the school and left with a disciplinary record that would follow her. The worst part was that Julian, the boy she did it all for, refused to clear her name. He and his family simply left the country, leaving her to face the consequences alone. She had been accepted into a good college, but the offer was revoked because of her record. She shut herself off from the world. I would visit, and she would throw things at me, screaming for me to leave. I ignored the glass that shattered near my feet and just stood by her side. It wasn't until a piece cut my leg and blood started running down my shin that she finally stopped. She handed me a bandage, her voice flat. "Leave. Don't waste your time on me. I'm a nobody now. Just let me be." She was self-destructive, and I was terrified she'd do something drastic. I started bringing her meals every day, rain or shine. One afternoon, her foster mother called me, her voice shrill with anger. Clara was in the hospital. She had cut her wrists. At the hospital, I heard the foster mother berating her. "If you want to die, die outside. Don't bring your bad luck into my house. I adopted you thinking you'd be smart and support me in my old age, but you're just a useless burden." I couldn't listen to another word. I stormed into the room, grabbed Clara by the collar of her hospital gown, and yelled, "Clara, get it together. Do you think life is easy for anyone? You think the sky is falling because of one little setback? You were rejected from college, so what? Try again. There's nothing you can't overcome if you just try. No wonder Julian never cared about you. You can't even handle a little hardship." My words were harsh, deliberately so. I had always been so careful around her, afraid to touch a sore spot. But seeing her so broken, I knew gentle words wouldn't work. She was stunned, her eyes wide and red as she stared at me. For a girl who came from nothing, her grades were her only source of pride. I softened my tone, wiping a tear from her cheek. "You're too smart to stay like this. Get through this, and everything will be okay. I don't know where I got the confidence, but I moved her out of that toxic house and into a small, rented apartment with me. I was an average student at best, and my family expected me to start working after junior college. They sent me $5,000 and told me to make something of myself. Seeing me struggle to make ends meet, Clara suggested she give up on school. I stopped her immediately. "Just focus on studying," I told her. "Leave everything else to me." So began the hardest years of my life. I washed dishes during the day, delivered takeout at night, and handed out flyers whenever I had a spare moment. It was barely enough to cover our rent and her books. Once, trying to earn a bonus for her new textbooks, I took on too many overnight delivery shifts and passed out from exhaustion on the side of a bridge. When I came home with my legs bandaged, Clara's eyes filled with tears. I forced a smile and told her it didn't hurt. She pulled me into her arms, calling me a fool. She whispered that I was her life and swore she would make sure we had a good future together. Unsurprisingly, with her brilliance and my support, she got into a top university. That's when her family found her. They learned about the years I had supported her and offered me a bank card with an 8-digit balance. I was at a loss. I hadn't done any of it for money. Clara had always promised we'd have a good life together, but I never imagined a life of extravagance. To me, just being with her was the good life. The bank card felt like an insult, a cheap payment to make me go away. My friend said my hard days were over, but I knew better. A family that rich would never let their daughter marry a poor kid like me. It had to be someone of a matching background, someone like Julian. Clara had always loved Julian. Maybe all she ever felt for me was gratitude. Our conversations had already started to drift apart since she started college. She would talk about academic theories I couldn't grasp, and my stories about the daily grind of delivering food no longer interested her. I noticed she spoke to me less and less. I've always been insecure, And in my eyes, she was this brilliant, shining star surrounded by handsome, intelligent men at her university. I was terrified she'd leave me. Our biggest fight happened when I took her to a jewelry store to buy an engagement ring, promising to marry her the day she graduated. She paused, then awkwardly pulled out a ring she had already bought. I knew in that moment it wasn't for me, but I chose to deceive myself. I let her slide it onto my finger. It was too small, a tight band of pressure. Looking at her seriously, driven by a stubborn need to hear the truth, I asked again, "Honestly, do you want to break up?" The forced smile left her face, and she said nothing. I laughed at my own foolishness. What was I even chasing? I knew the answer all along, but kept hoping I was wrong. Yet there it was, a ring on my finger that she had bought, a ring that was never meant for me. I turned away, pretending everything was fine, and went to water the champagne roses on the balcony. We had planted them together after I saw their meaning at a flower shop. Devoted to you alone. She came up behind me and wrapped her arms around my waist. "Leo," she said softly, "you'll always be the most important person to me." Tears immediately welled in my eyes. They say your eyes are big enough to hold the world, but they're too small to hold back a few tears. I kept my back to her, not wanting her to see my face as I quickly wiped them away. "What about Julian?" I blurted out. She went silent. I put down the watering can and turned to face her, struggling to pull the too tight ring off my finger. Forcing it on had hurt, but taking it off felt like a different kind of pain, a final, sharp release. I placed it back in her palm. "Here, it's yours." I looked at the red mark it left on my skin. "Sorry, I think I stretched it." She opened her mouth to say something, but I didn't want to hear it. Just then, the door swung open and a few of her college friends burst in, joking about how they'd been knocking forever and assumed we were busy. They came bearing good news. A paper Clara wrote had won a prestigious award. Her friends were polite and classy. They knew about me, and for 3 years, they had respected what I did for her. One of them patted her on the shoulder. "You really did it, Clara. All of Leo's efforts weren't in vain." Clara glanced at me awkwardly. "Yeah," she mumbled. "Thanks to Leo." Her friends insisted I join them for the award presentation, a trip out of town. "Yeah, Leo's heroic story will go viral for sure," one of them cheered. I knew Clara didn't really want me there, so I politely declined. "What are you saying, Leo?" one friend said, genuinely perplexed. "We're seriously impressed by you. I've never met a guy willing to work 3 jobs to put his girlfriend through college." Clara chimed in. "Come with us. It'll be a fun trip with good friends." As soon as she said it, another friend, never the mildest of the group, snapped. "Good friends? What are you talking about, Clara? I heard your parents set you up with Julian. Your high school first love. The one who got you into all that trouble." Clara said nothing, and the room erupted. "Are you crazy? Leaving a great guy like Leo for him? If you dare betray Leo, I'll hit you myself." Another friend patted my arm reassuringly. "Don't worry, Leo. We'll keep her straight. She wouldn't dare." I managed a weak smile. The conversation soon shifted to academic topics, a world of jargon I couldn't penetrate. Maybe Clara and I were never meant to be. I got up and retreated to the bedroom, a room filled with our memories. I remembered when we could only afford a leaky basement apartment, and in the freezing winter, rain would seep through the walls and soak her back as she slept. I had threatened to break up with her unless she swapped spots with me. I remembered shivering from the damp cold as she clung to me, whispering that she'd marry no one but me. I stared at my phone for a long time before dialing the number for Clara's family home. Her mother's voice was kind. "You've thought it over? The bank card. Feel free to use it. Thank you for taking care of Clara all these years." She paused, then quickly changed the subject. "You're a smart young man. Use it to start a small business. You'll be fine." The implication was clear. "If you weren't just a delivery guy, I'd let you marry my daughter, but there are no ifs in the real world." I softly replied, "Okay." I looked around the bedroom, trying to decide what to take. The closet was full, but only 2 or 3 faded shirts were mine. I tossed them in the trash. I saw the framed photo on the nightstand of us on a Ferris wheel. I picked it up, looked at our smiling faces one last time, and threw it away too. In the end, the only thing I took with me was that bank card. As I was leaving, one of Clara's friends saw me. "Leo, it's so late. Where are you going?" I made up a quick excuse. "A buddy's birthday. I've got to drop by." Clara knew I was lying. My only real friend was Mark, and his birthday had just passed. She just stared at me with a heavy, unreadable expression. I gave a final wave and looked at her one last time. A silent goodbye. At 11 o'clock at night, I walked away from 3 years of my life, clutching a bank card that felt like the cheapest compensation for a broken heart. It was, I told myself, what I deserved. With the money from Clara's mother, I opened a bubble tea franchise in a new shopping development. The location was perfect, and the brand was popular. Business was booming. I was so busy that I barely had time to think about Clara. Sometimes seeing a delivery driver come in, sweating and exhausted, I'd instinctively make them an extra drink on the house. I saw my old self in them, working tirelessly for a dream. If I could do it all over again, would I make the same choice? Life doesn't offer do-overs. At night, I'd lie in my new, empty apartment, staring at the ceiling. I wasn't thinking about her, but I'd notice the red mark on my ring finger and wonder when it would finally fade. One night, just as I was drifting off, my phone rang. It was Clara. There was a long silence before she asked, "Did you touch the stuff in the box?" She had a precious box filled with photos of Julian and notes from their conversations. I'd opened it once by accident, and we'd had a huge fight. "Clara, we broke up," I said calmly. "That stuff is important to you. I didn't touch it." She sounded guilty, then hesitated. "Did you trash our photo? The one by the bed?" "Yeah," I answered bluntly. "It was going to happen sooner or later." The line went quiet. I hung up. Unable to sleep, I wandered onto the balcony, pondering why love doesn't always equal happiness. I had given everything for her, so why wasn't I happy? It took me a long time to realize the answer. To love others, you have to love yourself first. I had spent my whole life being a people pleaser, and it was time to finally please myself. That night, I used the card to buy myself an apartment. Between renovating the apartment and running the shop, I was too busy to wonder if anyone loved me. I was living for myself, and I felt a freedom I had never known. I ran into Clara again at the entrance to my new community. Her friends were with her, nudging her. "Clara, get Leo back, or our friendship is over." "He's way better than Julian," another added. It had been over a year, and she was still as striking as ever. I saw them before they saw me, and thought about ducking into a coffee shop, but one of my employees ran up to me. "Leo," she said, looking worried, but her eyes kept darting over my shoulder to where Clara stood. The scene gave me a strange sense of déjà vu. Back in her sophomore year, Clara had developed a crush on another guy who reminded her of Julian. She'd been acting strangely, and when I pushed, she confessed she had a physical attraction to him. Heartbroken, I told her it was okay and decided to step aside. I was so naive. Worried she'd skip meals to save money to buy him gifts, I transferred all my savings to her. Not long after, she showed up at my door, egged on by her friends just like today. Seeing her looking so miserable, I forgave her before she even said a word. I had been an unbelievably foolish, willing victim. "Ignore them," I told my employee. "What's up?" He explained he had some family issues and needed time off. "Of course," I said, relieved. "Take all the time you need." As he walked away, I realized Clara was standing right behind me. "Leo," she began, her voice uncertain. Her friends urged her on from behind. "Mary, be nice, apologize." There was a time I would have given anything to hear her say sorry, but now I didn't need it. She shot her friends an annoyed look, then turned back to me. "When are you moving back?" she asked, as if I were just a pouting child who needed to cool off. She never thought she had anything to apologize for. But I had figured things out. Her family's compensation had set me up for a comfortable life I never could have achieved on my own. In a strange way, I wasn't at a loss. "I'm not going back," I said simply. She stared at me, then muttered an "oh," before turning to leave. As she walked away, I heard her friends asking if I'd forgiven her. Her voice was firm and annoyed. "No reconciliation, and I'm not marrying him. Why would I marry someone I don't even like, just out of gratitude? I only see him as a friend." Hearing those words, something inside me snapped. 3 years of my life, dismissed as gratitude. I walked up to her and, before I could think, my hand flew across her face. The slap echoed in the quiet street. "This," I said, my voice shaking with anger, "plus your mom's bank card makes us even. For those 3 years, consider me blind for loving someone so rotten. That marriage you're so afraid of? You think I'd still want it? It's me breaking it off, get it?" Everyone stared. My only regret was not doing it sooner. Clara ended up with Julian. It was all over her social media, 3 updates a day featuring their smiling faces. It was hard to miss. I used to beg her to post a photo of us, but she always said our relationship was private. I guess when you meet someone you really like, you want to shout it from the rooftops. We ran into each other again at a high school reunion. My friend Mark had to drag me there. Clara and Julian walked in holding hands, a perfect power couple. I just patted Mark's hand to calm him down. I could look at them now without that familiar ache. Later, as I was helping a drunk Mark out of the restaurant, Julian stopped me. "You're still the same after all these years, Leo," he said with a smirk. "Always thinking of others, never yourself." He stepped closer. "Honestly, if Clara were still poor, I wouldn't like her. That's the difference between you and me. I wouldn't let love ruin me." I just nodded. I guess I was pretty dumb back then. A sudden curiosity struck me. "If she wasn't from her wealthy family, would you be with her?" He answered without hesitation. "Of course not." Suddenly, there was a crash of shattering glass. Clara stood there, furious. She had overheard everything. But then she looked at Julian, her expression softened, and she forced a smile. "But it doesn't matter, does it? Because I am the lost daughter of a wealthy family. Why entertain such silly what-if scenarios?" She was terrified of that possibility, terrified he might leave her again. The next day, a sober Mark sent me a contact for a girl he wanted to set me up with. I gently turned him down. I was focused on my career. The bubble tea business was expanding, and I was using my free time to learn things I never had the chance to before, like piano and painting. I wanted to clear my heart before letting someone new in. Then I heard that Clara and Julian broke up. She initiated it. I spent the next 6 months traveling, hiking mountains, visiting museums, and enriching myself. When I returned from Mark's wedding, a group of old friends, including Clara's, were waiting at the airport. "Wow, Leo, you've changed," they said. Just as someone casually mentioned Clara's name, another voice cut through the chatter. "You've lost weight." I turned. It was her. I didn't know what to say, so I just replied, "You too." Before she could say more, my phone rang. A gentle voice asked, "Leo, where are you? Send me your location, I'll come find you." I hung up and smiled at my friends. "Pick a place for dinner, my treat. but we might have one more person joining us." Just then, a woman in a black hoodie walked over, unwrapped a paper bag, and handed me steaming, peeled, candied chestnuts. "Here," she said. It was Maya. Before my flight, I'd casually mentioned craving them. She grabbed my luggage, pinched my cheek playfully, and then, noticing my stunned friends, wrapped an arm around my shoulder. "Hi, everyone," she said brightly. "I'm Leo's girlfriend, Maya." Fate is a strange thing. I met her at a music room near my apartment, drawn in by the sound of a piano. Her fingers danced across the keys, and the music she played was unlike anything I had ever heard. We started talking, and for someone who was never good at conversation, I found myself talking for hours. She eventually confessed her feelings, and when I suggested we take it slow, she didn't run. She simply smiled and matched my pace perfectly. We all went to dinner, laughing and chatting. I only realized later that Clara had never joined us. Her friend said she'd called. Her stomach was hurting and she was at the hospital. They were worried it was polyps again, an old issue of hers. On the way home, Maya and I were messing around when someone blocked our path. It was Clara, supposedly in a hospital bed. "Mary," Maya said, her voice rising slightly. "Is your stomach feeling better?" Clara ignored her and looked only at me. "Leo," she said. Out of reflex, I let go of Maya's hand. "Long time no see," I mumbled. "I'm not actually the family's real daughter," Clara blurted out. "The hospital messed up the DNA samples." I already knew. The news had been everywhere. It was a ridiculous, unbelievable story. But it was true. I didn't have to guess the rest. She learned she wasn't an heiress, realized Julian would leave her, and broke up with him first. "So what?" I asked calmly. "What does this have to do with me?" I saw a flicker of hope in her eyes, and it angered me. "Are you out of money?" Before I could stop myself, Maya leaned close to my ear and said, loud enough for the security guard to hear, "Is your friend afraid of pretty girls? Why isn't she talking to me?" Then, she cupped my face and looked directly at Clara. "Mary, do you mind stepping aside?" When Clara just stared, calling my name again, Maya pressed her lips to mine, silencing any possible reply. Clara must have left at some point during the kiss. Later that night, I got a text from her. "Did you know your girlfriend flirts with other guys?" The next day, our friends called. Clara was in the hospital, for real this time. Stomach cancer. They urged me to visit. "She's on her last leg, Leo," Mark told me. I finally agreed, taking Maya with me. Clara looked frail, a shadow of her former self. She asked to speak to me alone. Maya patted my head and left the room. "You should break up with her," Clara said, her voice a weak rasp. "She's not a good person." I was already tired of her games. "I'll be the judge of that," I replied. "Want to bet?" she challenged. "Bet on her loyalty?" I scoffed. "I'm not betting on something so stupid." But her words planted a seed of doubt. I started watching Maya, trailing her like a fool. One day, I followed her to a romantic restaurant. I saw her meet a young, handsome boy, and then they went upstairs. My fists clenched. Then another, older man joined them. I was disgusted, hovering between a boy and a grown man. I pulled out my phone, ready to catch her in the act, to confront her. Suddenly, a hand grabbed my shoulder. It was Maya. "What are you doing?" she asked, her voice laced with amusement. My face burned with embarrassment. "You're here," she said, gesturing inside. "Why not have dinner with my family?" The young boy and the middle-aged man were her brother and her father. Eating that meal, red-faced and awkward, still haunts me. But as I sat there, laughing with her family, a profound sense of peace washed over me. I had won the only bet that ever mattered. I was no longer chasing a ghost or trying to earn someone's love. I was just happy. I was complete.